Hi, this is Isabel Litzler on today's live Facebook. Welcome. And this is the place to be to develop your skills and grow your potential. So I will be doing this monthly. So I have the agenda already if you want to register for the upcoming sessions throughout the year. Today we're going to talk about the do's and don'ts of a job search in Switzerland. So I will be checking in for questions. And of course, this will be available on replay a little bit later. So you can still ask questions and I will make sure I'll answer. So to get started, basically what I want to do is cover the do's and don'ts, give you a little bit of an idea of what's going on in the HR departments. This is something I know well, having worked many years in HR, so I can give you some background on that. And finally, what type of activities you can do to get yourself back to active status, as I call it. And finally, give you some actionable items, I call them. So first of all, what I want to cover is really the do's and don'ts of the Swiss market, because it is a particular place when you're looking for a job, especially if you come from different countries. There are some better things that you can do for yourself rather than others. So to get started really on what you should be doing on your applications or on your job search is really to be 100% clear on what it is that you're looking for. I know I've said this before and maybe it's a little bit repetitive, but it's uttermost important that you know what it is that you're looking for. What type of activity, what type of job. Are you looking for something full-time, part-time, which part of the country, etc.? So you need to do a little bit of soul search, I call it, because the market is one thing, but you need to be clear on your project. The second thing you need to do is have some excellent materials when you're applying for work. So your cover letter and your resume should definitely be Swiss style, I call it. So what does Swiss style mean? Well, really, when you're applying in Switzerland, the resume should have some particular items that you don't necessarily see in other countries. For example, your personal details, whether you have a work permit, a Swiss phone number, all these things that will basically encourage the recruiter to call you. So you need to make sure that you've worked on that, also have the skills, the experience. So I work in depth with my clients on that to really have a really nice resume, and it needs to be your resume, so you can't just take something off the web. The other thing is the cover letter. I know a lot of people think it's a lot of work, but if you have a really nice letter that's really targeted, that's going to make the difference. So you want to invest a little bit of time to understand where the company is coming from, what are their objectives, what are they facing, have they just purchased another organization, have they gone through a hard time. So you want to understand this because you're basically coming in an environment. So you want to apply within an environment. And this is even more important if you're a manager. You definitely want to show that you've done some research before you're applying. And that's going to make the difference between you and the others. The third thing you need to do is to develop a network of people around you. So again, when you're coming to a new country, you probably think, I don't have a network, but you do. You have people around you, even the people that you meet in your activities. That's already a start. And I know what's happening usually with job seekers is that they don't want to say they're looking. Maybe it's a little bit of being ashamed or feeling like they are asking something to someone, but really you want to do the opposite. You want to tell as many people as you can that you're looking, that you're out there and you're looking for a job. Of course, you don't want to sound desperate. You can just approach it as, I'm new in the market. I want to understand a little bit which companies are out there, what's going on. So I look at it more as a market survey. This is how people will connect with you and want to help. So this is really the third thing you need to do, is really understand the network of people that will sell you around yourself. The fourth thing you want to do is open your horizons. This is going to be important from the beginning. So if right now you're saying, I'm looking for a job in the center of a city, that's probably the wrong approach. What you want to do is really open as large as you can and narrow down later based on the return that you get on your applications. And this is something I struggle with sometimes with clients, because they say, yeah, but I don't want to move, I'm happy here, etc. There's always a time to make decisions. When you have opportunities, it's much easier to make decisions than when you don't have any. So there's always ways, maybe you can talk to your partner, or, depending on the job, the salary. So I always tell people, don't narrow down too fast, because you may get also potential contacts with people that may get you contacts locally. So for example, if you're applying in another city, maybe you get in touch with this company and you realize, you definitely don't want to make the move, but maybe by talking to them, you realize they're opening an office soon in your city, or they can give you another contact. So you never know. It's always networking. So that's the fourth thing, is open your horizons. The fifth thing you want to do is change your routine. I always say opportunity does not like routine. So if you're always replying to the same job boards, doing the same things every day, you probably won't get much more results. So you need to change that and start looking at your job search a little bit differently. So that's number 5. Number 6 is use the internet to work for you. A lot of people don't use the internet as much as they should. So they go on job boards, they go on LinkedIn, and they usually go to the same places, but they haven't really tapped into the power of the internet. And I will do a session on social media because I think it deserves some attention. Definitely social media is new for a lot of people, and they're just using it to check things, but they haven't really looked at all the power behind it. So that's definitely something you need to tap in if you want to move to the next level on your job search and brand your profile. So I will make a special session on that. Also with Google, people do job search where they're just looking at maybe company websites and job boards, as I just said, but they're not really looking at the power of keywords to find the hidden opportunities. So this is also something to look at in the internet. And finally, what you want to do is consider all opportunities. I think people sometimes have an idea of this is the type of job I'm looking for, but you need to be flexible. So you need to have a direction of what it is that you're looking for. As I said, have a career plan or have an idea, an objective, but at the same time, you want to be flexible. So for example, if you're a young graduate, and I will make a session on young professionals because I think it's important. If you're a young graduate and you're looking for a specific opportunity, you want to get experience to get to that opportunity, but the experience can be diverse and varied. Right now, companies might need you for something that's not 100% what you're looking for, but if it's something that's close enough, you need to get experience. So I think that's the message also, is sometimes people don't look at opportunities. They don't really see what they could do with a job. Sometimes a job can be reshuffled. It happened to me when I was employed for one position, and after a few months, actually, it was a much higher level than what it used to be. So there could be a lot of things happening in the interim when you're accepting a job. The job could be reshuffled to something bigger. The salary could be changed. You could all of a sudden have management experience. So basically, you need to discuss that when you have the interviews and see the potential there. And that's also something I will get into when I talk about being an opportunistic person in career. This is something I learned probably a little bit later in my journey. Would have been nice to know this a little bit earlier, so that's why I'm sharing it with you too, so that you gain time. Something about being a career opportunist. People that I've seen that had tremendous success or great careers are usually people who could see opportunities and put themselves in the right areas and connect with the right people to get to these opportunities. But it's not something people will give to you or will come to you for. This is something that you have to set yourself up with. So it's a little bit strategic, and I discussed this in my program, in my online career planning. I made a video just on that. The strategic part of being noticed and to get promoted within companies. So that's a different topic. But basically, to end with the to-do list, it's really to be an opportunistic person. This is what's going to get you the job. So that's for the do's. So if there's no question on the do's, I'll move to what you shouldn't be doing. And again, if you've done the don'ts, basically it's not fatal, as I say a little bit later. It's not fatal. You can always improve and make a little bit your strategy a little bit different, etc. So to go on the don'ts, basically what you want to avoid is to have a resume that's copied and pasted from the web. And I used to see these quite a lot when I was recruiting, especially the Europass CV. So if you have a Europass CV, or if you know people that are really excited about the Europass CV, please throw it away. Recruiters hate it, absolutely hate it. So I say this right now, and I've read it in different forums, because even though for a job seeker it seems very well aligned in terms of experiences, it's just the same one. Imagine looking at 60 Europass CVs, you just get sick of it. So what we're looking for as recruiters, and when I was recruiting, we're looking for people who can basically show information in a very nice, organized way with a very clear career path. So we want to have a story and understand where you're coming from and where you're going. A lot of people are a bit confused with the where you're going part. They've done they've got their experiences lined up, but it's not clear what it is they're looking for. And I think it's a little bit on purpose, because I think, again, job seekers haven't figured out completely their career path. So they keep themselves open. Yeah, I can do accounting, but I can also do supply chain and a little bit of marketing. And they think if I target wide, I have more chances to maybe be considered for several positions. It's actually a don't. That's not something you want to do, because you want the recruiter to know exactly what to do with your resume, and especially you want to be credible. So credibility comes with positioning. So if you position yourself as a marketing professional, you'll be respected for that. If you position yourself as a finance person, people will consider you for those openings. But trying to target too many openings is definitely a don't. So don't use a copy-paste resume. Make sure you invest the time and effort, even if you need support from a professional like myself. But do something that will be nice and visible, and that people will say, okay, this person is good, and they've put the time to make a nice resume. So the second mistake you don't want to make is assume recruiters will know what to do with your resume. That's something also, they don't have time to do that, and they really don't have time to fully analyze every single application in detail. So they will look at whether it matches the job description. And usually the person that does the first sorting of the resume is someone that works in the HR department. They have to go through 200 applications, and then maybe the recruiter will go through a selected first file. But the first person that's doing the sort through is going to just look at keywords and key experiences. So they're scanning quickly, so you need to be very effective in your communication. So don't assume that, okay, I'll just put all my experiences out there and they'll figure out something for me to do. It doesn't really work like that. You have to have worked yourself on your story and where you're going. The third thing you don't want to do is spread your resume large, thinking that if I send it to as many places as I can, I will get some more replies. It actually doesn't work on the Swiss market. That's why I always keep in mind when I'm making this presentation, I'm really focused on the Swiss market. It could work in other regions, other countries, but on the Swiss market, you have to be very, very clear on your market. So it takes also some research from the beginning when you work on your resume. What are the companies that will be interested in you? What is your best bet? So that you don't waste time and effort to apply anywhere and everywhere. So that's a little bit of work that you have to do from the beginning. The other thing you don't want to do, and it's interesting because I've seen a lot of presentations on LinkedIn and how to tap into LinkedIn, how to release the power of LinkedIn. It's definitely a tool. I look at it as part of social media to brand yourself. What I don't think works very well is to target people individually. So sending emails to people you don't know. So that's why I wanted to mention it here, because I've heard people say, well, I don't get any replies. Unfortunately, again, in this market, if people don't know you or they haven't been introduced to you by another person, the chances of replies are really low, even though you're connected on the same platform, on LinkedIn or another one. If people don't know you, they don't feel enticed to reply. So it's nothing to be taken personally against you. It doesn't mean your profile is not good or not of value. It just means that's the culture also. People like comfort. They like to know who they're talking to. They don't connect with everybody on LinkedIn. So you just have to be aware of that on the local culture, is that people are a bit worried sometimes about who is in their network and what they want from them. So the last thing you want to do is ask for help directly. So if you see, profiles you're interested in, you have to think about what's the best way to get to my objective, which is to be hired by this company, right? And what is the best way I can target and work on this without being so direct to connect with someone that I don't know and ask for something. So it takes a little bit of savoir-faire, as we say in French. The other thing you don't want to do is try to impose your country-focused opinion or way of thinking in a new region. So if you're coming, for example, from an English-speaking country, you definitely didn't have the issue with the language. Because again, if you come from the UK or the US, you can have a great career just speaking English, and it can be fantastic for you. The minute you move to a country like Switzerland where there's multiple languages, it becomes complicated. So it's something to keep in mind, that you're in a different culture. So what you think would be a given, you've worked in an industry, you're very experienced, and you were always very successful. You will almost have to prove again your skills in Switzerland. So you will probably have to learn a few languages, at least one, French or German, and you will have to prove yourself again to show that you're competent in your field, that you're someone of value and you have experience. So the language part I want to insist on here is really essential, I would say, to have a serious career in Switzerland. Because even if you work, people say I work for a multinational or international companies. Yes, you can probably maybe get hired, especially if you're junior, but at some point I think it will be a barrier. So you need to really think about if you want to stay at least a long time in Switzerland, the best way to have a career is definitely to work on your languages. So if you're a little bit behind in terms of language skills, that's something you want to tackle this year. And there's so many programs right now, online and offline, many teachers. They have all kinds of programs right now where they get you, immersed in the culture, in the language. There's really no reason why you can't learn a language now with all the tools available at your own rhythm. It can be immersion for a few months, or it could be different things you do, but I would definitely advise to learn more than just English, basically, if you want to be successful. The other thing you don't want to do is to skip the steps of investing time to understand the local market and the culture, and even the recruiter, if you have the name of the person on your application. So there's definitely this part of understanding the culture, the hidden codes, how things work, what's the best way to be introduced into a company. So if you've just been sending applications, definitely probably your return on investment is quite low. And that's why I put in one of my posts, if you're not getting any returns, there could be different reasons why, but probably you need to work a little bit more on your project and what it is that you're looking for, develop your language skills, and target really what you want very, very specifically. Because again, people are not so open in terms of bridges between different sectors and different industries. And maybe you're used to that where you're coming from, where it's a bit more open and you can change careers and you can change sectors easily. But here it's very much siloed. That's the way it works. And sometimes even between the French-speaking part of Switzerland and the German-speaking part, even people who have tons of experience in one part of the region may not be able to transition over. And I've seen that happen because maybe people don't speak German well enough, or they have an industry-specific experience that's not relevant anymore where they're moving to. So the bridges between the different regions and sectors can become complicated if you don't have a clear plan on how you're going to do it. So it takes a little bit more thinking. That's why I insist on that. If you're used to English-speaking countries where things can become a little bit more flexible, it takes a little bit of understanding the culture, how things work, and really taking the time to assess where's your best bet in terms of where you're going to invest your time and energy. So make sure that you work on that. So again, English is not going to be enough to get you a career. It might be enough if you're doing some summer jobs, if you're a student or what have you, but if you really plan on having a career in Switzerland, you will need a little bit more. The other thing you need to focus on, if you're not doing it at the moment, and that's definitely a don't, is to sit on your skills, meaning that, let's say you had a tremendous career in the States or in the UK or anywhere else, and I've seen that happen, where a lot of people come and have great skills, they had great careers, but they come to Switzerland and all of a sudden it just stops because all of a sudden they don't speak the languages or they don't have the connections, there's no industry. I see that happening in marketing, for example. I've seen people coming from New York, where you have so many opportunities, or London, big cities, Here you have a few jobs, but they're just very scarce, and they require very specific skills. So really assess what it is that you're missing on this market. You know, maybe you had a tremendous career before, but you realize with the Swiss market, maybe you need to do an additional training. So that's something I usually discuss with people ahead of time, because there's a lot of publicity online right now for masters, and I just saw one yesterday for getting women back to work, and it's a mini masters, MBA, they call it an MBA back to work. I would really be cautious about that because they are quite expensive, and I'm not sure the MBA is the answer for everybody. Again, MBA, there's many different courses in an MBA: finance, marketing, accounting, and you don't necessarily need all of this to get back to the market, especially if you are a successful professional. You just need maybe a few things that could be targeted, first of all, by assessing what it is that you need based on the market, and then what's the best thing. That's how, being a specialist in training, that's how I work with clients, is assess what is the gap. And then once I know the gap, I will tell them what's the best way. But the MBA is not the answer to everything, and it's quite costly, and it takes a long time. It can be a good answer for someone who has a specific career goal in mind, and needs to get to that stage, maybe to get into an industry, but it's not the answer. There's other ways to get where you want to go without necessarily doing the full MBA. Especially, I see a lot of people with masters already from many schools. So I really feel it's a bit of a pity when I see clients with 2-3 masters. It's just a bit of waste of time, because you don't need 3 masters. You just need experience, a very specific skill in whatever you're targeting, and that's it. And the Swiss tend to be very much on vocational training. So they like to have a lot of apprenticeship. They like people who are very, very specialized in their field and are good technicians. So they're not necessarily looking for MBAs or PhD. So that's just something to keep in mind before you invest in yet another college education. So that's for the do's and don'ts. Thank you for people who joined. By the way, I saw that the number of viewers became a little bit higher, so I'm very happy to see so many people join. What I wanted to cover also is the HR department mindset, because sometimes from a job seeker's perspective, we have an idea of what's happening on the other side of the fence, but it's not necessarily the case. So I just want to give you a few things about human resources, so that you have, not necessarily that you feel bad for human resources, but that you understand what's going on also on the other side. So the first thing I want to say is that there's less staff now in human resources. Oh, I see a few questions. So Claudia, hi Claudia, what about certified trainings? This is a very good question. I'm really for short trainings. I've done many things myself. I have a master's degree, but I've also done continuing education, what I call, and I really believe in that. I really believe in having something specific that covers exactly what you want. So there's a lot of that in Switzerland, actually, in many different cities. They will give you certified training, for example, in project management. There's a good one in Lausanne, I believe. The PMI project management degree is very good. And there's also certified training online you can do right now. That's quite interesting. So it depends on, you have to find out what it is, which kind of item you want to be certified in, and then look at programs that would fit this thing. And you can just ask questions to the university or the school, or the online program administrator, to find out if it covers the skills that you need. So Kinan is saying, thank you for the valuable information. Yeah, I'll advertise again the 2. I really like them. There's 2 online courses that are available. I believe it's Coursera and another one. And you have a lot of training out there that you can do online, and some of them can give you a certification at the end. So I really like that aspect. So thank you, Valdete Velira. I have a question here. Are there any changes in Swiss recruitment practice in hiring of non-EU for 2017-2018? That's also a very good question. The last I heard is that it would be a light type of application of the vote that happened. So that means there's local preference to some extent, which always happened before anyways. So for non-EU, it's going to be a bit complicated. Great live feed and valuable info. Thank you very much. So yeah, if you're non-EU, the only way is to find a company that will sponsor you. That said, I just heard a couple of days ago someone that received a permit because they were part of the EPFL on the scientific program. So if you're if you're a senior specialist in something very particular, you will always get a permit. Coursera and edX are great, says Cecile. Yes, I will try to give you a few after that. I will post it in my Facebook page because, again, they're very cheap, considering with an MBA, for example, and they might just give you exactly what you need, very targeted. Claudia says, perfect, thank you. That was what I needed to hear. Okay. And Petra is saying, yes, edX is fantastic. Kinan says, the challenge I face is that I come from the Middle Eastern market, and while I can do my job effectively, many positions require European market understanding. Is this really an issue? Yeah, well, I've worked in several countries myself. I worked in Los Angeles when I started my career. So when I came to France, I didn't have the French experience. So I had to go through a stage where I was just learning. I took some jobs that were mostly supporting roles, I would say, supporting positions, just to understand also because in France, when I was working in human resources, there were a lot of regulations, obviously. So I had to just go backward a little bit to learn the French regulation, the laws, and all that stuff. So it depends. Sometimes you have to be open maybe to do an apprenticeship or internship with an organization where you will get your feet wet on the local issues, because they may not offer you immediately a job with responsibilities. But that's really the way to go about it. And try to attend also events if you come to Europe, events in your area of interest, so that you can also talk to more people. Sometimes, depending on the organization, they may want someone like you that has the Middle Eastern experience for their organization. So it all depends. It's meeting needs, basically. There's always someone that needs your type of skills, as I say, to job seekers, because even if you come from a different country, you might find an organization that wants someone who understands a different market. For example, when I worked in not-for-profit, we were desperately looking for people with Middle East experience to do program funding. So, and I couldn't find anyone, obviously. We were on the European market because it's a different way of doing business over there too. So what you know is actually might be your strength coming to Europe, if you find an organization that's developing the Middle Eastern market, for example. And I know when I was applying for a position, I know it was part of my role actually at the time. I would have to develop the Middle Eastern market. So it could be found in Europe where your skills would actually be your strength, and you could still say that you will, you will invest yourself in also learning the European ways by maybe coming in at a more junior level or something like that, or taking some classes as well online. So that's for this question. Great. So I'll be checking the screen anyways. So to keep going on the human resources mindset, so the first thing is that we definitely have less staff now to do the work. That's a reality. When I started my job back in the 90s, we were 200 in human resources. That was the head office. And now you probably are lucky if you have an HR generalist and maybe an assistant. So you have maybe 2 or 3 people maximum, and they do everything, including recruitment. So the size of the HR department is definitely a bit less now. It depends. Sometimes it could also be abroad, the HR department. So what you have to think when you're applying for a job is what is in it for them, because you know they're going to scan through very quickly because they don't have a lot of time. So always think what is in it for them. You know, why would they want to hire someone like me? So make sure you've researched their needs of the organization, what it is that they're looking for, etc. I have a question from, I hope I pronounce it right, Eji Rogan. How can I go about getting internships? I'm a change management practitioner, 8 years experience, have not been able to get any job. I've been in Basel for 2 years. So you have some Swiss experience if you've been in Basel. I assume you speak some German, hopefully. How can I go about getting internships? you have to look at, so you can look at the market online to see if they advertise internships. I would look at immediately the employment pages of the companies that you would be interested in, because sometimes they have internship programs they just post on their employment pages, on their job application part, but they don't put it in the job boards. So it's just by looking, and now companies are doing that more and more, where they just post it on their website. So you want to check also companies' websites, and to see also, just to see what type of maybe smaller organization would also be interested in an intern. I know even small organizations or solopreneurs like myself, sometimes I remember a year ago I took someone as an intern for a couple of months. So you may find also on the small size businesses, they may need someone, and actually it could be interesting for you to learn a lot of different things, so it could be one way to move to a different city and then to look at what's going on there. Because again, the problem is looking at a job when you're in a different city sometimes is not easy, and you have to start somewhere. So I would be quite open if you want to relocate on what it is that you can get, but definitely check the employment pages. That's where companies will advertise all their programs, especially for trainees or interns. That's where you can find it. So I hope I answered the question. Try to give just in a snapshot a couple of bits here. So on HR mindset also, the thing you have to remember is that their role is to filter candidates to interview. So they will only look at the best ones that match the job description. So that's why you need to put a lot of effort in your application so that you meet as much as you can the job description. If you don't meet, or if you're very far from it, probably sometimes I say job applications online are not for you. You're better off networking and scheduling yourself to go to events, because you'll keep not meeting the requirements, and it's a lot of frustration in the end for both parties, really. So that's how they do it. They would just look at the application and try to match as much as possible. That's how they work. HR professionals typically don't accept contact requests. So I was saying earlier about contacting people online. Your chances there are quite limited in terms of action. So I wouldn't waste so much energy on trying to contact HR people. And the other thing is that you find that HR professionals are not necessarily inside networking events. And the reason being is that I say we because I'm still a little bit in HR, even though I'm more of a career coach now. We're not necessarily the type of people, and I say that in general, not necessarily talking about myself because I'm on Facebook Live today, and I've done some work on that to be more public, but generally HR people are quite shy. They tend to be more comfortable being operational, so they're better off inside the company with insider contacts and dealing with people on an internal type of manner, but they're not really the type to go to events and to actually talk and to meet people. That's just not their type of personality. You can find a few that will do that, but it's not the majority. So that's why, if you think I'm going to meet HR people or engage with HR people, it's going to be difficult. So I wouldn't put too much effort again on necessarily connecting with HR from the get-go. It's going to be quite frustrating as well. But it's not necessarily your fault. Again, it's just that they're not the most visible out there necessarily. And the other thing is that it's also hard sometimes to find HR contacts because now they could be based in another country. So you could be applying for a job and people reading your applications are in the States or in the UK or in Germany. So you don't really know necessarily where they are, and it could be a little bit of a chasing game to try to find where the contact is based. Now, what I like in Switzerland is that sometimes when you have a job opening, they will state the name of the person and the phone number. A lot of placement agencies work that way. They want to be reachable. So you can always, with the placement agencies, it's a little bit easier. You can always try to contact someone to reinforce your motivation for the job and at least to talk to someone. But again, it's going to be more of a challenge. So that's why on the job search part, trying to target so much HR people may not be the best bet. The best bet might be to go through the back door, which is to connect with people working in that sector and to try to learn as much from them so that you're making a good application for the job and you're noticed by the HR department. So that's just in a nutshell a few things to know about human resources and how they work, so that you don't necessarily think that your application is bad or you have no chance of getting a job. I think your best bet is really your mental strength. The more you'll be comfortable with your skills, you know the market well. Basically, the more you know about your field and your skills, the better off you will be, because then you will be a strong candidate, what we call in human resources. So you have to become this strong candidate, and then HR will come to you, or they will be interested in you. So my whole work that I do with clients is really to make them a strong candidate, you know, on their social media presence, on their resume, the trust that they have in their skills and in themselves, which it starts there. That will basically build up your confidence, your skills. That's why I say develop your skills and grow your potential. Is the more you develop your skills, the more confident you are, and then you become the type of person that companies want. So you see, it's looking at it a little bit differently. So you're not expecting them to give you this, you know, the attention, but you're giving the attention to yourself. So the next thing is really about, how do I boost my market potential, or what can I do in my activities right now to get a better chance of finding something. If I follow the do's and if I understand the HR department's behavior, what is it that I can do? Well, the first thing is really be busy. Work on anything that you can to be active, because, and I've checked that recently, actually a couple of days ago, with a headhunter. After 6 months on the Swiss market, your marketability goes down tremendously. So you definitely want to keep busy. Whether it's a training program, whether you're doing some even volunteering work, you know, anything that can put you in the active status would be good. What I said also earlier, skills in languages. So if you're not busy right now, you know you have this gap coming up, just register for a course, get yourself 100% trained on that, so that you can get also better return on your applications. So volunteering, learning languages, and being busy in any type of activity, even a personal activity. I know someone that was actually quite senior, and she actually built her own website on a topic that she was quite interested in, and she was noticed by an organization, and that's how she was able to find a job in marketing. So really, if you're doing something that's of interest, you know, even if it's a personal project, you have a chance maybe of being noticed, and a company will say, you know what, I want to work with you. I like what you've done on this project. A lot of people now are going the solopreneur route. It doesn't mean you have to stick with solopreneurship, but you can actually create something for yourself that will interest other people. So a lot of people, for example, blog right now. So if you have good writing skills, that's definitely a good way to get noticed. Blog on something you know very well, that you can post on LinkedIn. And you never know, you can engage with a few people that way, and these people could be your next bridge towards your next job. So again, it's really about understanding where you're good at, and really get noticed, and then the right people will slowly get into your networks, and that will also help you with the question of, where should I work, what would I be good at. Sometimes it becomes you know, you will realize that it's there. It's just that you haven't put the time to actually show what you can do. I think it starts there, and then people will come to you. So there's really something to be built before you can actually reach that job that you want for yourself. So that's about boosting your market potential. I'm just looking to see if people have questions on boosting your market potential. I think you talked about it a little bit already. Doing trainings for yourself. If they're certified, it's actually better, because then you can really show people like something that's a certification, so you have something to show for. Same thing with languages. Now you can be certified with different European standards. And that way, you know, people understand immediately how you can speak and write in the language. So there's different things you can do actually right now that you may have not started, that can really increase your market potential and make you the type of person that a Swiss employer or a company here would want to hire. If no more questions on that, the last part I like to do in these presentations is really about concretely what type of items can I put in place immediately. So I call that actionable tips. So the actionable tips, oh, I see a question from Petra. Do you recommend to get back to the companies and ask for some specific feedback so you know where to grow? Excellent question. I just saw a lot of comments on LinkedIn around that, the topic of getting feedback. It's a tough one because I was even myself at some point giving feedback to candidates that were not selected with more or less success. What I mean by that is that sometimes people took it really badly. I was trying to be as objective as possible, but it wasn't necessarily received in a positive manner, especially with people that were really sure of their skills. So it's always a very sensitive thing, I think, to begin with. The other reason why people don't necessarily give feedback is that it could be the lack of time. As I was saying earlier, HR departments being so busy, they don't have dedicated resources that could actually give feedback to each individual applicant. So that's why you end up with automated responses from database. So it's an issue. And I will talk about it in my conference next week. Actually, I'm giving in terms of human resources, the situation right now with recruitment. These are issues that are out there. Basically, number of HR people in the department that can answer to candidates. What type of answers should you give? Should it be all really general or should it get more specific? Knowing that it would take more time to really, really give specific feedback to individuals, but then again, more valuable for them. So I think it could be, and that's a question for HR departments, it could be good to invest just for the branding, the employer branding, to give a little bit more detailed feedback to candidates. At least it helps them for their next stage. And even if they're not the right candidate for that particular position, maybe in a couple of years, they could be the great candidate. Maybe they need a bit more experience, or maybe they need to learn the language a bit more. But they might be close, actually, and it's a pity that the person doesn't have the information. So I agree that feedback is definitely something that companies could be investing in, and I will recommend that actually, that HR departments give a little bit more investment in feedback. I think it could be valuable for the image of the organization, because I've seen yesterday on LinkedIn people were really, really lashing out on a reply that someone posted, like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, basically. And it's just not very nice, basically, when you receive those, especially if you've put so much energy in a letter and a resume. Thank you. So yeah, I will be definitely an advocate for trying to giving more bridges between employers and employees. I think companies need individuals and you need a job, but I think it should be more leveraged, where you both get what you want and there's more communication. I think it's a pity to miss each other in a way like that. So definitely I'm all for more communication, more feedback, more engagement also with applicants. Again, I think there could be great people that are just passed by, unfortunately. So I agree on that. So yeah, Petra, I will make a point of it. So 3 actionable items. So the first one was what I was saying is build a really nice letter and a nice cover letter and a nice resume that you've put energy in, that looks beautiful, that you're proud of, where you have all your skills and all your experiences. You can also share that with a few contacts of yours to get their feedback. Also look at the organizations. What I like to do is to try to match the colors of the resume even to the organization, to go even a little bit further. And I post in my Facebook page examples of how people get jobs by basically being a bit different. I think sometimes people will use the exact colors of the company, or maybe they'll use some of their wording. Anything that gets you close to that company culture will make you a better candidate. So I play on that a little bit with applications to have a better chance to be selected. So build a very remarkable application. The second actionable tips you can do immediately is, if you've done a lot of errors, let's say on the Swiss market, you've applied everywhere and you've had a resume that was a little bit for everything, and you think, oh my God, that's it, it's over. I wouldn't take it so personally. You can always build a next cover letter and resume, and there's nothing that's really that can be changed. You just have to reassess your strategy a little bit differently and work a little bit differently. But I think life is always about moving forward, I think. So you learn and you just target new companies and bring a new resume to them and try to show what you can do. And finally, the last one is to keep track of your work around your job search. Peter Drucker said, "What's not measured is not managed." And I really like this phrase. Peter Drucker, having written so many management books. Basically, what you want to do is make sure that you know what's working and what's not working. So in other words, if you've been sending tons of applications on job boards and you're not getting replies, probably in 6 months you'll be in the same stage. So you want to start diversifying a little bit your job search and see what's working. You know, maybe social networks will work for you. Maybe going to more events will start building more results. So so you should really measure what you're doing and what's efficient. Otherwise, you probably don't see much of an immediate result. So that's definitely what I work on as well, is trying to move your job search forward and start getting more engagement, more replies, and finally sign a contract. That's the idea. So that's for the actionable steps. Next month, I'm going to cover job search for young professionals because I have a few things to say about that. It will be March 2nd. You can register now online. And again, it will be also on replay. There's also a bunch of other topics I'm going to cover throughout the year that are always around job search, developing your skills, etc. If you think of something that is not in my topics, but you think is really interesting and you want to see it covered, send me an email or post it on a comment. I will make sure to work on the topic and give it some attention. So, any more last minute questions before we all continue our days? So Petra said, thank you. Thank you very much for asking the questions. I've had some really good questions today from you, so I appreciate that. I think everyone else will benefit from the answers, so it's always great. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for all the information. I'm glad to do it. It's very nice to have this open conversation with so many people, maybe not even based in Geneva. So I like the fact that it really, you know, we can really exchange ideas. And the idea for me with this Facebook page is really to bring a movement where, you know, companies become also more aware of the situation, and we can all find creative solutions on how to work better together, how to create better opportunities, also make our jobs also more interesting. So I think there's definitely this aspect here. Yeah, thank you, Keenan. Appreciate your questions. So again, if you come and you see this video a bit later, I will be answering questions still and reading through the comments. And I'm really looking forward to keep sharing information with you on Facebook and my other social media, of course. Thank you. Great to speak with you. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.